The journey of enlightenment. Are you truly seeing or just looking? We see things around us every day, but do we truly understand them? Have you ever questioned, is what I've always believed actually true? Today's story follows the journey of our main character, a person who once wandered in false perceptions but gradually found the light of wisdom. Through ups and downs, he learns that seeing correctly and understanding correctly is the key to living with peace, reducing suffering, and discovering the ultimate truth. Join us in this journey and reflect. How are you looking at the world? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful lessons. Right understanding brings less suffering and more happiness. In a small village nestled in a lush green valley, there was a young man named Lucas. Since childhood, he had many questions about life. He observed that everyone around him seemed to have their own sufferings. The elderly worried about aging, the young chased after fame, the poor struggled to survive, and even the rich were not truly at peace because they constantly feared losing what they had. Seeing this, Lucas believed that life was filled only with suffering, that people were born into an unfair fate that they could not change. With this belief, Lucas often carried a heavy heart and a pessimistic outlook. When things did not go as he wished, he blamed fate and resented those around him. If someone treated him poorly, he immediately assumed they hated him, which only deepened his dissatisfaction. Day by day he lived in frustration, feeling that life was utterly unfair. One day, a Zen master happened to pass through the village. He silently observed Lucas and then gently asked, "My child, why do you always seem so sorrowful?" Lucas sighed and replied, "Master, I see that life is filled with nothing but suffering. People are born into hardship, and no matter how hard they try, they cannot change their fate. I wish to find a peaceful place to escape all these troubles." Hearing this, the Zen master simply smiled. He took a small mirror from his bag, placed it on the ground, and asked Lucas to look into it. Then he asked, "Do you see your face in the mirror?" Lucas nodded. "If your face is covered in dust, will the image in the mirror be clean?" "No, it will be blurred," Lucas answered. The Zen master nodded in agreement and continued, "Then, if you want the image in the mirror to be clear, what must you do?" Lucas immediately responded, "I must clean the mirror." The Zen master looked at Lucas intently and spoke in a calm yet profound tone. "Your mind is like this mirror. If your heart is filled with negativity, blame, and resentment, then the world you see will also be full of suffering. But if you learn to perceive things correctly, you will realize that life is not only about suffering, it also contains joy and beauty." Lucas remained silent, deep in thought. Seeing this, the Zen master told him a story. Two men were locked in the same dark prison cell. One of them stared at the walls, believing he was trapped forever, and suffered each day. The other looked up and saw a small window with light shining through. He held on to hope, waiting for the day he would be free. Both men were in the same situation, yet one suffered while the other found peace. Why do you think that is? Suddenly, Lucas understood and muttered, "Because they perceived their situation differently." The Zen master smiled. "Exactly. Suffering or happiness is not determined by circumstances but by how you perceive them. If you only focus on negativity, life will seem full of misery. But if you learn to see things differently, you will find that life still has goodness. Right understanding will reduce suffering and increase happiness." Lucas bowed his head in contemplation. From that day on, he tried to change his perspective. When someone treated him poorly, instead of resenting them, he asked himself, perhaps they are also struggling with something, which is why they behave this way. When faced with difficulties, instead of complaining, he thought, this could be a challenge that teaches me something valuable. Gradually, he felt his heart becoming lighter. The same events still occurred, but with a different mindset, they no longer felt as burdensome. He began to find joy in the simplest things: the morning sunlight, his mother's smile, the encouraging words of his friends. Years later, when he had matured and gained much wisdom, Lucas returned to find the Zen master. This time, he clasped his hands and expressed his gratitude. "Master, I once believed that life was filled only with suffering. But thanks to you, I now understand that it is my own mind that determines how I experience life. When I changed my perspective, I found peace and the world became brighter." The Zen master nodded in approval. When your mind is clear, life becomes clear. If you think correctly and act rightly, you will create happiness for yourself. From then on, Lucas passed down the master's teachings to the people in his village, helping them realize that happiness does not come from external conditions but from how each person chooses to see and respond to life. Gradually, the small village became a peaceful place where people lived with understanding and gratitude. Lessons learned. Suffering or happiness does not come from external circumstances but from how we perceive them. If we only focus on the negative, we will see only suffering. But if we have the right perspective, we will find joy. By changing the way we think, life becomes lighter and more peaceful. Right understanding helps us maintain inner peace, regardless of external conditions. When we learn to think correctly and act rightly, we not only reduce our own suffering but also spread peace to those around us. And that is the true path to lasting happiness. The method of studying the Buddha's teachings, Yoniso Manasikara, wise attention. After learning that right understanding could reduce suffering and bring happiness, Lucas became deeply interested in the teachings of the Buddha. He wished to explore the vast ocean of Buddhist scriptures to gain wisdom. However, as he delved into various texts, he became increasingly confused. The more he read, the more contradictions he seemed to find. Some scriptures emphasized meditation, while others focused on ethical conduct. Some promoted renunciation, while others acknowledged the importance of lay life. The different schools of Buddhism also had their own interpretations, making it even harder for him to grasp a clear, unified understanding. Feeling lost, Lucas sought out the Zen master once again and humbly asked, "Master, I have been studying the scriptures diligently, but the more I read, the more confused I become. Some teachings seem to contradict each other. How can I truly understand the Buddha's wisdom without getting lost in endless theories?" The Zen master smiled gently and replied, "My child, when a traveler comes across a vast forest, if he does not know how to follow the right path, he may wander endlessly. Likewise, when studying the Dharma, if you do not use the right method, you will only become more lost." The Buddha taught a method called Yoniso Manasikara, wise attention or proper reflection. This is the key to truly understanding his teachings. Lucas looked at the master with curiosity and asked, "What does wise attention mean, master?" The Zen master took a cup and poured some tea into it. Instead of stopping, he kept pouring until the tea overflowed onto the table. "Lucas, why does the tea spill over?" Lucas quickly answered, "Because the cup is already full, master." The Zen master nodded and said, "That is exactly how many people approach Buddhist studies. They read with preconceived opinions, comparing what they learn with their existing beliefs. But if you want to truly understand, you must first empty your cup, set aside your assumptions and approach the teachings with an open, unbiased mind." Then he continued, "Yoniso Manasikara means studying the Dharma by looking at the cause and effect behind each teaching. Instead of taking everything at face value, you must ask, why was this teaching given? To whom? Under what circumstances?" The Buddha did not teach in a rigid, one-size-fits-all manner. He spoke according to the needs and capacities of his listeners. If you do not consider the background and context of a teaching, you might misunderstand it entirely. The importance of context. The Zen master led Lucas to a garden where different plants grew. Pointing to a tall tree, he asked, "Lucas, if I tell a man in the desert to water his plants daily, will it be good advice?" Lucas thought for a moment and replied, "Yes, because plants need water to survive." The Zen master then pointed to a lotus pond and asked, "What if I tell someone to water his lotus plants in this pond?" Lucas chuckled. "That would be foolish, master. The lotus already grows in water, it does not need more watering." The Zen master smiled and said, "Exactly." The Buddha gave teachings according to the needs of his audience. If you do not consider the circumstances in which a teaching was given, you may misunderstand its true meaning. That is why wise attention is so important. It helps us see how different teachings fit together rather than thinking they contradict each other. Lucas listened attentively and the Zen master continued, "Throughout history, Buddhist scriptures have been recorded and interpreted by different schools and traditions. Some emphasize wisdom, others focus on faith or meditation. But if you study them with wise attention, you will see that they are not contradictory, they are like different medicines prescribed for different illnesses. You must understand why each teaching was given and how it fits into the larger picture of the Buddha's path." Applying wise attention to study the Dharma. Lucas was eager to put this method into practice, so he asked, "Master, how can I apply this method to my own study?" The Zen master gave him 3 important guidelines. Consider the context. Before accepting any teaching, ask yourself, to whom was this taught? Under what circumstances? What problem was it meant to solve? This prevents misunderstandings and helps you see the deeper purpose behind each teaching. Look for the cause and effect relationship. The Buddha's teachings always follow a logical sequence of cause and effect. If you find a statement that seems unclear, look at the surrounding teachings to see how it connects to the overall path. Test it in your own experience. The Dharma is not meant to be blindly believed but experienced directly. The Buddha often said, "Ehipassiko," come and see for yourself. Apply what you learn to your daily life. If a teaching leads to peace, clarity, and wisdom, then it is truly beneficial. The wisdom of a balanced view. After practicing this method for some time, Lucas began to see the beauty of the Buddha's teachings more clearly. He no longer felt confused by different interpretations because he understood how each teaching was given to address different situations. He realized that some people needed teachings about renunciation because they were too attached to worldly pleasures, while others needed guidance on compassion because they were too focused on themselves. One day he returned to the Zen master and shared his insights. "Master, I now understand that the Buddhist teachings are like a great river. Though different streams flow into it from different directions, they all lead to the same ocean of wisdom. By using wise attention, I no longer feel lost in contradictions. Instead, I see how each teaching has its own place and purpose." The Zen master nodded in approval. "You have understood well, Lucas. The Dharma is like a vast map. It shows many paths, but all lead toward the same destination, the end of suffering. By studying wisely, you will never be misled. And most importantly, always remember that the ultimate purpose of knowledge is not just to understand but to transform your life. True wisdom is not in words but in practice." With deep gratitude, Lucas bowed to the master and continued his journey, now with a clearer mind and a heart full of wisdom. He knew that his study of the Dharma was no longer just about collecting knowledge, it was about seeing reality as it truly is and applying that understanding to bring peace into his life and the lives of others. Lessons learned. Understanding the Dharma requires wise attention, yoniso manasikara, not just blind study. Teachings must be understood in their context, why they were given, to whom, and for what purpose. The Buddhist teachings are not contradictory, they are like different medicines for different illnesses. The best way to study the Dharma is to test it in daily life. True wisdom comes from experience, not just reading. By following this approach, we can navigate the vast ocean of Buddhist teachings without confusion, seeing the unity behind the apparent differences. And most importantly, we can turn knowledge into wisdom, bringing peace and clarity into our own lives and the world around us. The difference between right view, samadhi, and wrong view, mikadaihi. After practicing wise attention, yoniso manasikara, for some time, Lucas began to notice something profound. People's suffering often came not from external circumstances, but from the way they perceived reality. Some people lived with clarity and peace, while others, though living under the same conditions, were constantly tormented by fear, greed, and anger. This made him wonder, why do people in the same situation experience such different levels of suffering? To seek an answer, he returned to the Zen master and asked, "Master, I have seen that two people in the same situation can react completely differently. One is calm, the other is restless. What causes this difference?" The Zen master nodded and replied, "It all depends on their view of reality. Those who see reality as it truly is live in peace. Those who distort reality through wrong views experience suffering. This is the difference between right view, samadhi, and wrong view, mikadaihi." Lucas was intrigued and asked, "Master, what is right view and how is it different from wrong view?" The Zen master led him to a quiet pond and pointed to the water's surface. "Look at the water, Lucas. What do you see?" Lucas looked at the pond and replied, "I see a reflection of the trees and sky." The Zen master picked up a stone and threw it into the pond. The water rippled, distorting the reflection. "Now what do you see?" Lucas observed carefully and said, "The reflection is broken and unclear." The Zen master smiled and explained, "Right view is like seeing reality in still water, things are reflected clearly, exactly as they are. Wrong view is like looking at reality through rippling water, it is distorted, misleading, and causes misunderstanding." What is right view, samadhi? Right view is the ability to see things as they truly are, free from delusion, attachment, and ignorance. In Buddhism, it is considered the first step on the Noble Eightfold Path, leading to wisdom and liberation. Right view includes understanding the Four Noble Truths: suffering exists, suffering has a cause, suffering can be ended, and there is a path to end suffering. The law of cause and effect, karma. Every action of body, speech, and mind has consequences. Impermanence, anicca. Suffering, dukkha, and non-self, anatta. Everything changes, clinging to anything leads to suffering, and there is no permanent self. When a person has right view, they see life with clarity. They do not cling to illusions, nor do they resist reality. They accept change, take responsibility for their actions, and cultivate wisdom and compassion. For example, when Lucas faced difficulties in his life, he began to apply right view. Instead of blaming others or feeling like a victim, he reminded himself, Difficulties arise due to causes and conditions. I have the power to change my reactions and create better outcomes through wise actions. Because of this understanding, he no longer feared suffering. Instead, he saw challenges as opportunities to grow. What is wrong view, Mikadaihai? Wrong view, on the other hand, is the inability to see reality as it is. It arises from ignorance, attachment, and delusion. Some common wrong views include believing that actions have no consequences, thinking that one can act selfishly without facing any repercussions, believing in eternalism or nihilism, either clinging to the idea of a permanent self or believing that nothing matters, denying impermanence, holding on to things as if they will last forever, leading to suffering when they change. A person with wrong view is like someone lost in a fog. They make decisions based on illusion rather than truth. Their mind is filled with greed, anger, and fear because they do not understand the nature of reality. For example, Lucas once had a friend, James, who lived in constant fear of losing his wealth. He was obsessed with accumulating money, believing that financial security would bring him happiness. However, despite his riches, James was always anxious. He feared thieves, economic downturns, and losing his status. His attachment to wealth was a form of wrong view. He mistakenly believed that happiness could be found in external possessions. One day, a financial crisis struck, and James lost much of his fortune. Unable to bear the loss, he fell into deep depression. When Lucas visited him, he gently said, "James, you are suffering because you believe that wealth was permanent. But in truth, everything changes. If you understand impermanence, you will not suffer when things come and go." James, blinded by his wrong view, resisted the truth and continued to suffer. How to transform wrong view into right view. The Zen master explained to Lucas that wrong view is like being in a dark room. The way to dispel darkness is not by fighting it, but by bringing in light. Similarly, the way to transform wrong view is by cultivating wisdom. He gave Lucas 3 important steps. Question your assumptions. Whenever you feel disturbed, ask yourself, is my suffering caused by reality, or by my perception of reality? Often, suffering is caused by clinging to illusions rather than seeing things as they are. Study the Dharma. Reading and reflecting on the Buddha's teachings helps cultivate a clearer understanding of life. Teachings on impermanence, non-self, and karma help replace delusion with wisdom. Practice mindfulness and meditation. Through meditation, one learns to observe thoughts and emotions without getting attached to them. This helps develop clarity and insight, reducing the influence of wrong view. A story of transformation. Years later, Lucas met James again. This time James had changed. He no longer clung to wealth as his source of happiness. Instead, he lived a simple and meaningful life, helping others and cultivating inner peace. Lucas asked him, "James, what changed?" James smiled and replied, "I realized that my suffering was caused not by losing wealth, but by my attachment to it. When I let go of that illusion, I found true happiness, not in money but in wisdom and compassion." Lucas bowed to him with respect, knowing that James had now discovered right view. Conclusion. Choosing the path of wisdom. Right view leads to wisdom, peace, and happiness. It is seeing things as they truly are. Wrong view leads to suffering, confusion, and fear. It is seeing things through the lens of ignorance and attachment. By cultivating wisdom, studying the Dharma, and practicing mindfulness, we can transform wrong view into right view. The Zen master's final words to Lucas were, "A person with right view is like a traveler with a good map. He walks confidently, knowing his direction. A person with wrong view is like someone walking in the dark. Every step is uncertain, and every shadow is a source of fear. If you wish to walk the path of peace, cultivate right view, and you will never be lost." Lucas took these words to heart, knowing that the key to true happiness was not in changing the world, but in changing his own perception of it. Right understanding brings peace and enlightenment. As Lucas continued his spiritual journey, he noticed a profound truth. Happiness and suffering were not determined by external circumstances, but by how one perceived and responded to them. He saw that those with right understanding, Samadhi, lived peacefully, while those with wrong understanding, Mikadaihai, were trapped in endless cycles of suffering. One day he approached his Zen master and asked, "Master, I see that some people, despite having wealth and success, are still unhappy, while others, even in difficult situations, remain calm and joyful. What is the secret to true peace?" The Zen master smiled and said, "Lucas, true peace comes from understanding life as it truly is. Those who see clearly live without fear, while those who are blinded by illusions suffer endlessly. What is right understanding? Right understanding is the ability to see things as they are, free from distortion, attachment, and ignorance. It is the foundation of wisdom and the first step on the Noble Eightfold Path. Those who cultivate right understanding realize suffering exists, dukkha. Life is filled with difficulties, but suffering is not random, it has causes. Impermanence, anicca. Everything in life is constantly changing. Clinging to anything leads to suffering. Non-self, anatta. There is no permanent, unchanging self. Everything is interconnected and dependent on causes and conditions. Karma and responsibility, our actions shape our experiences. By cultivating good actions, we create a better future. When one deeply understands these truths, they no longer struggle against life. Instead, they flow with it, accepting both joy and sorrow with equanimity. The story of two farmers. To illustrate this, the Zen master told Lucas a story. There were once two farmers, Daniel and Ethan. Both faced the same challenge, a severe drought that destroyed their crops. Daniel, seeing the situation clearly, thought, "Droughts are a part of nature. I will adapt and find a way to survive." He then sought alternative sources of water, planted drought-resistant crops, and remained calm. Ethan, however, refused to accept the truth. He was angry and cursed the sky, saying, "Why is this happening to me? Life is unfair." Instead of adapting, he spent his days complaining, growing more bitter and resentful. In the end, Daniel not only survived but found new ways to improve his farming, while Ethan, trapped in his wrong understanding, fell deeper into despair. The Zen master turned to Lucas and said, "Both farmers faced the same external challenge, yet their understanding determined their happiness or suffering. Right understanding brings peace, while wrong understanding brings misery." How right understanding leads to happiness. When one cultivates right understanding, life becomes lighter. Obstacles are no longer seen as punishments but as lessons. Difficulties are no longer unbearable but opportunities for growth. Freedom from fear. Those who understand impermanence do not fear change. They accept that everything comes and goes, health, wealth, relationships, so they live with gratitude in the present moment. Inner peace in all situations. Right understanding allows one to remain calm amidst difficulties. Instead of blaming others or external circumstances, they take responsibility for their own mind. True happiness from within. Instead of seeking happiness in external things, money, status, or pleasure, one realizes that peace comes from within. A person with right understanding can be content even with little, while one with wrong understanding remains dissatisfied even with much. Lucas reflected on this deeply. He realized that all his past struggles came from resisting reality rather than understanding it. He had blamed others, fought against change, and sought happiness in things that were impermanent. But now he saw the path clearly. Applying right understanding in daily life. The Zen master gave Lucas 3 key practices to cultivate right understanding. Observe the nature of life. Reflect on impermanence daily. Everything changes. I will not cling to what is temporary. When suffering arises, ask, what is the cause? What lesson can I learn? Practice mindfulness and meditation. Observe thoughts without attachment. Recognize when wrong views arise and replace them with right understanding. Act with wisdom and compassion. Make decisions based on truth, not emotion. Help others see clearly just as you have learned. Enlightenment through understanding. Years later, Lucas became a wise teacher, guiding others toward peace and wisdom. He told his students, "True happiness is not found in wealth or power, but in right understanding. When you see clearly, suffering disappears. When you accept life as it is, peace arises naturally. This is the path to enlightenment." And so, with a mind free from illusions, Lucas lived a life of profound peace, never lost in suffering again. Core message: the power of right understanding. At the heart of the story is a simple yet profound truth. Our suffering or happiness is determined by how we perceive and respond to life. Right understanding, Changqian, helps us see reality as it is, impermanent, interconnected, and shaped by our own actions. Wrong understanding, Taqian, leads to illusion, attachment, and endless suffering. By observing, reflecting, and acting wisely, we free ourselves from unnecessary pain and cultivate a peaceful, meaningful life. When we embrace right understanding, we no longer fight against life. We flow with it, finding peace and clarity in every moment.